So before I get into this next question, my mom had another one. Has your perspective on dangerous kayak runs and like waterfalls has that changed since you've had kids?
Question. I get that. I've had that question asked several times, and I would say it has changed. It has definitely changed, but not the way that maybe people might think. So regularly, I guess since I've had kids, I've got a 7-year-old son now and a 4-year-old daughter. People would say like, "Oh, now that you have kids, you're not going to be running class 5 rapids or hard waterfalls or anything." And for anybody out there that doesn't know about king or river grades, class fives like the what they call the highest level. Just the grading system that we have in kayaking in Whitewater. Um, and and so for me, my answer was always like, well, no, I'm not gonna just stop running class 5 or waterfalls. I'm gonna continue doing what I love to do. And I've done that. Now, on the flip side of that, I would say that more so now than ever, I am extra cautious and prepared that I'm not going to foolishly run something that is just extra dangerous that I don't need to do. I'm trying to avoid putting myself into unnecessary risky scenarios or situations. And so because I think it would be extremely selfish of me to go risk my life or possibly die and leave my children without a father. I would consider that really selfish. Where before having kids, it would still be very selfish of me to like, risk my life and die and leave my wife without a husband and widow or whatever, all that kind of stuff, or my mom without a son or my dad without a son. But before having kids, I never thought about it that way. I mean, it just, and I would imagine maybe other people, youth probably don't think of it that way either. They're just thinking like, it's my life, I'm going to do what I want to do. And if I risk my own life, well, I went out doing what I love. Um, I think now after having kids, that's a little bit too selfish of me to consider. But I still run class 5, I still run waterfalls, all that stuff to the same. Now I just make sure that I'm extra cautious. Or maybe extra confident might be the way to look at it. Where if I'm going to risk something, or if I'm going to run a waterfall or a rapid that is risky, I want to make sure that I'm feeling 100% ready to go. I want to make sure that I see that line, that I'm like 99.9% confident that I'm going to make that line. Because if not, is it worth it? Like,
Mhm.
where's the risk to joy, levels? Do you know what I mean? And risk reward balance, I guess. And so anyway, I still do stuff all the time that a lot of people, might think is crazy or whatever. But for me, it's just like I feel confident on my line on that day in that moment. Whereas I might go back to that same waterfall the next day or the day prior and be like, not right now. Maybe I'll come back to it. And so it's all about, that moment, what you're feeling, how confident you are, where your skill set is. Have I been practicing for the last, 6 months straight? Have I been, like just kind of where everything's at? It all kind of balances and adds up to kind of what's going on in the moment for me.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you're not confident going in and you hesitate or you like, not yeah, that's the only word I can think of. If you like hesitate at like a turn or a point in the waterfall, I feel like that would be detrimental.
Right, and just like how you were saying when you're on the swimming block and you said, "Oh, I'm gonna have a bad race," you probably did.
Mm,
I've now have, years of experience and a lot of mistakes along the way that if I start having those negative thoughts, it's game over for me. I don't even get back in my boat. It's like, well, I screwed that up by having the negative thought in the first place because that negative thought is now more likely to come into fruition because I'm thinking negatively. So I now know, like, if I'm going to go into a risky scenario, I want to analyze it properly. I want to assess the dangers and the risk, but I've got to be thinking positive. I've got to be thinking confident if I want to continue on. And then if that negative thoughts start happening, then I just know, like, okay, well, today's not the day. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll see how tomorrow feels, but today's not the day.
right. Yeah. I can kind of relate to that because I used to play rugby, and a lot of the guys in my first year got concussed like hard, and I never did. And so they came like people would come up and be like, "How haven't you been concussed yet?" And I was like, "Listen, I go into the tackle wanting to get hurt, and so
Right.
I just go through it." These guys were worried about getting hurt and got like they hesitated a little, and that just leads to a whole bunch of issues. So, uh, yeah, you got to be confident, 100%.
Yeah.
One of those scenarios that I wanted to brush up on is your experience in 2015. Um, I'm gonna say this wrong. The Shawinigan River,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, in Quebec. So, if you don't mind, do you mind taking the viewers like through that event? Like, what was going through your mind when that happened?
Oh, it's funny. I haven't thought about the Shawinigan River and that event in a long time. I guess probably 5 years. So yeah, we were doing the Whitewater Grand Prix back then, and yeah. Anyway, I made a crucial mistake where we're on this river. There was a low head dam kind of thing, a bad spot essentially that you wouldn't want to get stuck into, and I couldn't see the line very well. It was a wide lip. And anyway, and so I was having someone help guide me off, and they it was 100% my fault, but they were helping guide me off in the spot that I thought I was supposed to be in, and I wasn't. Quickly got into, a bad situation, and within that, I immediately thought like, okay, this is gonna go sideways real quick. Because this bad spot was also above like another set of rapids and then another rapid and then a waterfall. And it was just like, if I swim out of this, things could go bad. If I don't swim out of this, things could get worse. And so all of these thoughts and everything kind of the whole analysis was going through my mind pretty quickly. Um, and I realized that like, okay, I've got to get onto the seat of my boat. I've got to pull my legs up onto the seat of my boat, pop my skirt, dive out of the boat, swim to shore, get to shore as fast as possible, and kind of like hope for the best case scenario. And I don't even know if hope would be the right word. Just like work your tail off to like make the best case scenario work. Because when you're in those kind of like life and death or just like high risk scenarios, you're not, at least for me anyway, the hope isn't there. The hope's there for sure, but like what's going through my head is it's like laser focus of like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. This is the plan, and make it happen. Like there is
Mhm.
no plan B. There is no other option because I know how serious the situation is. And I've had a couple of those situations throughout, I guess, probably I don't know, coming up on 2 decades of paddling, but I try to have them few and far between, and I try to learn from all the mistakes. But yeah, that was one of the foolish mistakes that I've made through my career where, unnecessary risk occurred, and I could have easily avoided it, and I didn't. And yeah, anyway, it went sideways and got really serious pretty quickly, but I was able to get out of the situation, swim to shore, and kind of, um, figure it all out. Afterwards, I was pretty shaken, and that definitely kind of threw me off for the rest of the event. I continued to actually, I think the race was maybe the next day or something like that. That was actually in practice, and so I continued on in the event, and I think I maybe even got like fourth overall in the whole event or something. But I was pretty shaken for the rest of it, and usually those kind of situations shake me for a little bit, and it takes me some time to kind of realize like, okay, what was the mistake that really happened here? The mistake wasn't that I went into the whole sideways. The mistake wasn't even that I was guided off maybe in the wrong spot. The mistake was that I put the whole situation in someone else's hands. This mistake was that I didn't see the line for myself. The mistake was that I put on the water and in front of something that I knew was risky without really having a great game plan going into it. And anyway, so yeah, I've tried to learn from all the major mistakes I've made through life.
Man, I'm so glad I could remind you of that incident. That's what an honor. Um, that's insane, man. Yeah. So you kind of already just mentioned it, but how were you able to bounce back mentally from something like that and just succeed later? Because I know in other sports it's not that serious, but you know, when you if you compare this to like another sport, when you fail or you have a bad race and you're stuck in that slump, how were you able to get out of that and then have another successful one?
Um, I guess the gist of it is when 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 you're in a situation where you've got like, something like that where you make a poor decision or life happens and things go sideways, you're just forced to like to bounce back, or else you're going to sit there, on the ground crying about it, right? It's kind of, it goes back to like the whole start of the conversation again with 2020, where it's like, yeah, you could sit there and complain about it, or you could try to like, you know, find your way through the weeds and find that, silver lining, or that ray of light, or whatever it is. It's a little different in this because you're like physically shaken, and it probably took me, it's a little longer because um you've got to kind of get over that fear. But at the same point, I don't know, I can also just tell myself like, okay, I'm going to get back on the horse and go. And I guess like with that event in particular, like I got back in my boat and I raced the course the next day. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there's like an easy answer necessarily. I would just say like the old saying, you get back on the horse. You just try to get back on the horse as quick as possible. And I would say if, you've gone through a scenario where it's life threatening, I'd get back on the horse as fast as possible, but I'd take it easy.
Hmm.
I'd go stay in the pen with the horse. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't be going out to the field. But I would try to get back up as quick as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Get back on the horse after it tried to kill you and okay, like let's relax here.